wanted to look beyond the clouds and the stars.
I am your father.
Buonasera, benvenuti a questa nona puntata di Inno al Cinema. Era un po' che mancava il nostro format principale del canale, vedo già che vi state collegando e questo mi fa molto molto piacere. Ci sono già dei saluti. Un saluto a Matteo, ciao. Allora, non starò troppo a leggere qui all'inizio i commenti stasera perché dobbiamo iniziare una discussione molto molto importante. Sapete tutti che vi abbiamo spammato abbastanza, abbiamo un ospite molto importante. Come immaginerete, l'ospite parla inglese, ma ovviamente ci sarà tempo per me di riportare le domande nostre e vostre, perché insomma mi aspetto che farete delle domande anche voi dal pubblico in inglese, quindi ci sarà un po' di rallentamento nell'andamento della live per via delle traduzioni, ma penso che ce la dovremmo cavare più che egregiamente. Buonasera a Matteo e buonasera a Lorenzo. Allora, io vado dritto al punto, non facciamo aspettare troppo l'ospite, anche perché abbiamo una piccola sorpresa direttamente dall'ultima live della scorsa settimana. È tornato a trovarci Filippo Cellai. Ciao Filippo.
Buonasera, ormai sono il tuo valletto.
Esatto, no, lo sapete, abbiamo fin troppo sviscerato la settimana scorsa l'importanza che il Signore degli Anelli ha per me, Filippo, e per la nostra amicizia, e quindi oggi all'ultimo minuto gli ho detto: ma perché non fai un salto e spieghiamo a Daniel perché il suo lavoro e quello di tanti altri ha significato così tanto per noi, e ora a breve lo faremo. Ciao, buonasera Sam Filippi. Allora, continuano le celebrazioni dei 20 anni della Compagnia dell'Anello in Italia. La settimana scorsa abbiamo fatto il Watch Together della Compagnia dell'Anello e devo dire che siamo molto molto contenti dell'andamento del video. È stato molto visto, molto seguito e soprattutto molto apprezzato. E stasera rilanciamo. Io avevo chiesto a questo ospite di partecipare alla live prima delle feste natalizie. Quando mi ha detto di sì, non ci volevo credere, eppure è qui con noi stasera. È stato concept designer per la Weta Workshop dietro le quinte del Signore degli Anelli e dello Hobbit, e anche per altri progetti di cui non parleremo stasera per motivi di tempo, tra i quali Avatar e le Cronache di Narnia. È in questo momento, in avanzamento di carriera, è diventato l'art director, oltre che autore di libri per la Weta Workshop, art director sui collectibles, ovvero sulle statuine da collezione che noi appassionati vorremmo tutte, ma costano. Intanto qualcuno si è accorto che ci sei anche tu. Un occhio della testa, quindi è sempre una sofferenza perché le vorremmo tutte. Non facciamolo attendere oltre. Per me è un onore incredibile, un'emozione. Stasera mi vedrete veramente in difficoltà. Signore e signori, Daniel Falconer. Daniel, good evening.
Hello. Nice
You can
to
say
see
ciao, at least ciao.
Oh, that's what I say.
Daniel, first of all, lo ringrazio velocemente, ragazzi. Thank you for accepting my invitation. It's a special show for us, for me, for Filippo, for Leonardo, which is the other guy that works with me on the channel who cannot be here tonight. As we told you before, we grew up loving and watching and being obsessed on The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and many other projects you worked on. But mainly, we are here tonight celebrating 20 years of the Fellowship of the Ring in Italy. Because as I told you before, as the entire world basically received the gift of The Lord of the Rings for 3 Christmases, we received it a little later at the end of January. And I have to tell you, last week, on January the 19th, the movie was released January the 18th, 2002 in Italy. We were in high school at the time, so we were not allowed to go out in the night during the week. We had to wait Saturday night.
Wow.
Filippo and I, we were 16 at the time. Last week, on the 19th of January, precisely 20 years after our first watching on the big screen of the Fellowship of the Ring, we had the first of the channels watch together. We watched the movie, commenting it all through its duration, and it was a blast. Many people followed us. We had like a 1,000 views, and we're very, very happy. It was a great walking down memory lane, and it was great. So the first thing we have to say you basically is Thank you for the work that you and all the other guys in New Zealand did for us and the world in its entirety. So, before reaching the Lord of the Rings questions and discussion, we have to follow the format of our channel. Quindi ora li facciamo il questionario cinefilo del nostro canale. This is the Cinephile Questionnaire, Daniel. 3 simple and very silly questions just to figure out how you grew up loving movies, because you love movies indeed, I guess. Otherwise, you wouldn't do this work. 3 simple questions. I'll go with the first one, which is the easiest one. What is the first film you remember watching on the big screen as a child?
It took me 2 goes because the first film did not work out so well. I was 4 years old and my parents took me to see The Watership Down, which is, if you don't know it, it's about...
I know.
And it's terrifying. It's a traumatic experience. So I didn't make it all the way through that. I was too young and I couldn't watch the whole film. So that was... I
can connect with that.
6 months later, my parents took me to see The Empire Strikes Back, and my mind was exploded, and I've never been the same since.
but traumas at the movies also helps developing the love for movie itself, because it challenges you.
It becomes...
I'll translate briefly your answer.
Yeah.
Ha dovuto fare 2 tentativi per innamorarsi del cinema sul grande schermo, perché la prima volta che è andato al cinema con i suoi genitori è andato a vedere La collina dei conigli, il film animato tremendo. Chi non l'ha visto non può capire, recuperatelo se non lo conoscete, tratto da un famoso romanzo, e non è riuscito a finire la visione in sala, è dovuto scappare perché si è messo a piangere disperato. È stato un vero e proprio trauma per lui, ma tutto si è risolto e gli è esplosa la testa, è diventato un amante del cinema quando 6 mesi dopo sempre i suoi genitori l'hanno accompagnato a vedere L'impero colpisce ancora, che definisce una delle esperienze formanti della sua vita. Great questions. Watership Down, which in Italy is known as The Hill of the Rabbits, as the novel which is based on, was a trauma for me as well. I had the VHS of it, and I never finished watching it. I bought the Criterion Blu-ray a few years back, and I watched it as an adult, and it's still pretty traumatizing, I have to say.
It's a good film. For a 4-year-old on the big screen, it was...
Yeah, absolutely. È un cartone animato assolutamente rivolto ad un pubblico di adulti, come molti che uscivano negli anni 70 e 80, e posso capire il trauma di Daniel. So, great questions. And Star Wars is basically at the roots of everyone's passion for movies.
Yep.
The second question is getting closer to your job at Weta. Growing up, which was your favorite creature in a movie? The one that you loved or were obsessed by its design. Gli ho chiesto quale creatura era la sua preferita mentre cresceva e guardava film.
I think Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, still on Star Wars.
Jedi, because I was about, I must have been about 9, I think, when I saw The Return of the Jedi, something like that. Anyway, around that age. So I was really into my, Star Wars action figures, all that kind of stuff, and I was loving that world. I loved the puppets, the creatures. I was beginning to think about how they were making the film as well as how it was, just experiencing the story. And Jabba the Hutt is he's a huge puppet, but he's also a completely believable character. And I just loved his whole presence, his whole energy, the design, and of course the way that he was made. There's 4 people inside him, just incredible. So I love that and always wanted to be involved in some way after seeing that. That's the kind of thing I wanted to do with my life. And I made, we couldn't afford to buy the little toy of him, so I made one out of clay to have in my collection with my rest of my Star Wars figures. So I guess that was pushing me along that line as well.
Yeah. I can figure it. Allora, la sua creatura preferita crescendo al cinema è Jabba the Hutt, per restare, come dice anche Matteo. This guy, Matteo, our friend, is telling Star Wars is basically the baptizing of everyone for love of movies. Jabba the Hutt ha visto il Ritorno dello Jedi quando aveva all'incirca 9 anni, e è rimasto ossessionato da questo enorme pupazzone che capiva essere un pupazzo, ma che allo stesso tempo riusciva a essere un personaggio credibile, espressivo e assolutamente affascinante. Ed è stata anche la prima volta, quando ha capito che c'erano 4 persone dentro che lo muovevano e che gli davano la vita, che si è chiesto e ha indagato su come quell'effetto speciale, quella creatura potesse prendere vita sullo schermo. Probabilmente è stato uno dei primi passi che ha mosso verso, diciamo, l'esperienza professionale che poi avrebbe segnato la sua vita. Quindi di nuovo Star Wars. I have to tell you, we're making this questionnaire for everybody, and Star Wars, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, and Disney stuff always come out, especially Snow White.
Can I give you a number 2 as well?
Sure,
the number 2 would be from the Dark Crystal was a huge influence on me as well, and so the Skeksis in that, these weird, cool vulture-like, dragon-like guys, just fascinated and loved those as well. Again, I made little models of them all when I was a kid because, you know, that was my thing. If I saw it on screen, I wanted to have a little version of it in my home as well, so I would sculpt them. If I couldn't buy it, I would sculpt it.
Wow. And you had the pleasure to work on it, didn't you?
On the Dark Crystal?
On the new series?
No, on the collectibles for it, yes, but not on the...
Somehow.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Un'altra creatura chiamata sono gli Skeksis, scusate se lo pronuncio male, ma non conosco molto bene il film, che è Dark Crystal, appunto. Sono queste sorte di mezzi avvoltoi, mezzi draghi, creature spaventose che da piccolo non poteva permettersi di comprare nella versione ufficiale, che quindi si è costruito da solo, oltre ad aver avuto poi da adulto la possibilità di lavorare sulle statuine da collezione della nuova serie creata per Netflix. Great questions again, Daniel. And the last one, this is a little... I don't know if you can answer to that, because I don't want to tease you or put you in difficulty, but again, I can tell you this 100 times. Keep that in mind. We are super obsessed with Lord of the Rings and we love everything about it. And it's our really growing up, watching the Lord of the Rings in our teenage was life-changing in any way possible. Personal, in loving movies, etc. So it's really our point of reference for everything. I mean, and we've never seen anything as good as that.
Wow.
But we've seen many good stuff. And in your opinion, which movie do you think managed to create an organic and believable narrative universe following your lesson, guys, after Lord of the Rings was released?
Oh, after Lord of the Rings. Wow.
Because you pushed the ante a lot. Gli ho chiesto, secondo lui, I have to translate for the guys, gli ho chiesto secondo lui quale film o serie di film successivi all'uscita del Signore degli Anelli è riuscita a seguire la loro lezione della Weta, di Peter Jackson, di tutti quelli che hanno lavorato alla trilogia, è riuscita bene quanto loro, anche se per me non c'è riuscito nessuno, ma questo non glielo diciamo, se no poi si monta la testa, è riuscita a creare un universo narrativo altrettanto credibile e organico. Daniel.
Wow, that's a hard question. I think because I saw what went into it, I would probably have to say Avatar, because James Cameron is the kind of director who is thinking on such a massive scope, and he's also, but at the same time that he's thinking very broadly, he's already also incredibly detail obsessed as well, and he wants everything to be just right. So when Weta started working on the first Avatar movie, a lot of work had already been done. The creatures in the world had already been developed. When we came in, my colleagues and we were really developing culture on top of what had already been developed. So we had to develop the Na'vi culture and the human culture. But all that amazing world building had already been done, all that thinking had already been done. And that blew my mind because it was so thorough. Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what he has in mind for the sequel.
Yeah, me too.
Of course. Allora, ha citato ovviamente, mi aspettavo questa risposta, Avatar di James Cameron, che ha detto che è un regista che pensa in maniera talmente gigantesca ma allo stesso tempo è molto ossessionato dai dettagli di quello che crea. La Weta e lui stesso hanno lavorato al film, ma praticamente il materiale che Cameron ha fornito alla Weta era già praticamente una mitologia e una serie di personaggi, luoghi armature, armi, e tutto quello che vedete nel film praticamente era già stato pensato e concepito da James Cameron. Quello che la Weta ha dovuto creare praticamente è stato il contesto della cultura dei Na'vi e della cultura degli umani sul Pandora, in cui far funzionare narrativamente tutto quello che James Cameron aveva già creato. Quindi parlando anche appunto di una creazione in mano a un'unica persona piuttosto che a una realtà così grande come quella della Weta, si è innamorato ed è rimasto da subito impressionato dal lavoro di Cameron. Ok, thank you, Daniel. This is our brief questionnaire.
Thing, which is obviously at Weta Workshop we worked on Avatar, but what I'm fanboying over is the work that everybody else did on the project. James Cameron and his team at Lightstorm Entertainment, they did an incredible job world building that before we came on board. So it was such a pleasure to work on it then, after they had laid such amazing groundwork. So that's the bit I'm fanboying over.
Thank you for the for this. Ci tenevo a sottolineare ancora una volta che, visto che la Weta ha lavorato ad Avatar, non è che si sta autoincensando, sta dicendo che era praticamente già fanboy di tutto quello che aveva creato Cameron e i suoi colleghi alla Lightstorm, che era la casa di effetti speciali di James Cameron, sul quale loro si sono comunque potuti divertire, ma avendo già una base di creazione molto molto diffusa. Thank you again, Daniel, for the answers. This was our brief questionnaire. So this little movie came out 20 years ago. You may have heard of something about it. First and foremost, Filippo is here. As I told you before, we had this watch together and we walked through memory lane, but I have to explain you. Ragazzi, questa non ve la traduco in italiano perché l'abbiamo già raccontata nella puntata del Watch Together, come è andata tra me e Filippo. La racconta Daniel perché abbiamo la possibilità di raccontare a qualcuno coinvolto nei film una storia personale, una storia di cinema, gliela raccontiamo. So, we wanted to take this opportunity to talk with somebody who worked on this movie, which is so important for me, and share our story of cinema, because Filippo and I were in our third year together in high school. We were in the same class because we have the same class for 5 years in Italy in school. I don't know if it's working the same way in New Zealand. And basically, we were not really friends. I mean, yes, because we were like 27, 25 guys, but it was into sport. It was into basket. And I was the nerd since I was born. So we had a good relationship, but we were not friends.
Yes.
Coming the Fellowship of the Ring, I had read Tolkien's book, of course, and I was preparing for a huge event for the movie. And so for the night that we had to watch the movie, the nerd that I am created a 9-person group to see the movie.
Cool.
Our fellowship, of course. Nerd.
Wonderful.
Filippo,
You created the 9 nerds.
exactly, the Fellowship of the 9 Nerds. And so Filippo was into it. And he came watching the movie. And the fun part was that he was not aware it was a trilogy. So when
I'm sorry. Really sorry.
So when the end is Fade to Black, directed by Peter Jackson, arrived, it was like in shock. Because he did not know a thing. But what happened was that on Monday morning, he approached me and he asked me, "So you read the books, right?" And I said, "Yes, I did."
And I said, "Tell me something, everything you know. Tell me everything you know about Lord of the Rings. I don't know what it is. Tell me everything."
Exactly. And
Wonderful.
That's how a lifelong friendship started. And first, we have to thank you guys because, again, your work on the trilogy, many people must have told you that, really changed many lives, not only artistically, but also personally around the world. It feels weird to say this, but it's true. And I know you're aware of it. So the first, we wanted to share this little story because it really means a lot for us. But the first question that I wanted to ask you is, what does it feel for you to have this knowledge, to know that you started as a very young artist in New Zealand, where there was not that much of a big movie industry. And I use a strong phrase, but you guys changed the world somehow. I have to translate this.
Yeah.
Gli ho chiesto, dopo che gli ho raccontato il perché io e Filippo dopo 20 anni siamo ancora migliori amici grazie al suo lavoro e al lavoro di tutta la Weta e di Peter Jackson sul Signore degli Anelli, sapendo che lui è consapevole che la trilogia ha cambiato la vita di molte persone, come si sente a vivere con la consapevolezza di essere partito come un giovane artista in un posto come la Nuova Zelanda, che non aveva una vera e propria industria cinematografica, e sono riusciti a creare qualcosa che di fatto, qui mi prendo la responsabilità io di dirlo, ha cambiato non solo la vita di molte persone, ma da un certo punto di vista il mondo intero, almeno da un punto di vista dell'intrattenimento. Please, Daniel.
I think you keep saying thank you, and I'm going to say the same thing, because I'm the same as you. I'm just a fan of these books that was lucky enough to be there at the right place at the right time when this was happening. I always hoped I could get into making cinema because I love the art form, but I love those books first and foremost, and I always hoped maybe someday I would be working in the right place that I could get to be involved in some small way. So for that to be one of the very first things that I got to work on in my career, unbelievable. As a fan, and so I and a lot of my friends and colleagues working on the films feel the same way, that we were fans of that source material first and foremost, and so the working on the films was a way for us to express our love of that world and those characters. So I'm just incredibly grateful for that opportunity. And also for how warmly people have received us and received the films, but then also by extension, those of us who worked on it. And it's like we've suddenly become part of this amazing big community. And we're still talking about it 20 years later, which is crazy.
Yep. Ok, thank you. La verità è che noi lo stiamo ringraziando dall'inizio della live, dice Daniel, ma lui non può fare altro che ricambiare i ringraziamenti, perché lui si sente come noi. Lui era un fan del Signore degli Anelli, dei libri di Tolkien, e si sente solo come un ragazzo fortunato che si è trovato al posto giusto, al momento giusto, per poter partecipare. Tra l'altro uno dei primi lavori nel mondo del cinema a cui lui mirava, a cui ha partecipato, a questo progetto incredibile. Ed è una sensazione che condivide con molti suoi colleghi alla Weta, ovvero la possibilità di essere stati dei fan fortunati che hanno potuto lavorare a un progetto e esplorare qualcosa che amavano alla follia per condividerlo con il mondo. E non ringrazierà mai abbastanza l'accoglienza che tutta la community di fan mondiale ha riservato ai film, ma non solo ai film, anche al loro lavoro e anche al loro ruolo nel creare questi film. E il fatto che per loro lavorare a questi film è stato un modo per esprimere, è proprio stata un'espressione d'amore per il materiale originale, e il fatto che dopo 20 anni siamo ancora qui a parlarne per lui è una cosa incredibile. I must say, Daniel, that I think that a big role in this creating a communion was of the appendices on the DVDs. I mean, I grew up watching the movies as much as watching the appendices. I mean, they're cool as a movie. And as I was telling you before we went on air, I feel you're an old friend for me. I mean, it's great. And watching you guys working at the other side of Hollywood, of the world, from Hollywood, and creating such artistry, it's unbelievable. And I think you were pioneering also in that, in sharing the big behind the scene job, work and jobs. For the first time, because DVDs were pretty new when these movies were released.
Yeah.
Stavo sottolineando che secondo me buona parte del merito va anche a come Peter Jackson ha curato e condiviso con il mondo le appendici, gli extra dietro le quinte del Signore degli Anelli presenti nelle vecchie edizioni DVD, che ha un po' sdoganato la figura dell'artista che lavora dietro le quinte. So before Filippo leaves, he has a question for you, just out of pure curiosity. Filippo, you want to tell him something else about our personal experience, if you want?
Firstly, I'm very excited that you see that, and because I'm just realizing that I'm talking with Daniel, the great Daniel, and I have also to thank you, Michele, because this is a great gift for me to be here. He called me this morning and he told me, "Hey, do you want to stay 10 minutes with Daniel?" Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Well,
And
we're very sorry, Daniel, because in high school we spent 3 years. We were supposed to study and follow the teacher talking about stuff, but we didn't. I have a diary full of Filippo's drawing of funny scenes from the trilogy. I couldn't find them. Otherwise, I mean, we made
them.
I'll send you them when I find them. They're pretty old. There is an entire strip, like a small comic book of every tragedy in Frodo Baggins's life. I mean,
Yes,
yes. Or the fact that perhaps laughing about Theoden running toward the gate of Helm's Deep and receiving just a hit and then running away in the first place. We are that stupid and only nerd.
And also we said that we have to show these pictures to the Weta. Probably they can call us to work with them.
Yes, we should, of course. So, Filippo, if you have...
I have just one question for Daniel. It's a very simple question, but it means a lot for me. Which is the one, I don't know, item, creature, or a costume you worked on about Lord of the Rings? You are most proud of?
I have to translate this. Filippo ha chiesto a Daniel qual è l'oggetto, il costume o la creatura ai quali ha lavorato per la trilogia del Signore degli Anelli di cui va più orgoglioso. Please, Daniel. I know it's a tricky question because you can't say 100 things and they're all good. But
I think for me, I was so pleased with the way that Treebeard ended up looking in the final film, because that was one that could have gone the other way, right? It might not have worked. It's of all the things in the Lord of the Rings, the Ents are the most unusual and potentially the most jarring with the aesthetic of the rest of the film, because Peter Jackson wanted everything to be very, very realistic. But there's not, a walking, talking tree is not, that's difficult. So I was very involved with the Ents, and I love those characters so much from the books. I always had a very firm idea in my head about what I thought they should look like. So I think that's my favorite, because there was so much concern all the way through making it was, are they going to look good or are they going to look ridiculous? And luckily, thanks to the work that everybody did, especially the work of my colleagues at Weta Digital who animated the final, digital version, thank goodness it looked good and it worked. So that's what I'm probably most proud of.
Thank you very much.
I figured it.
Sorry, you have to go.
Allora, mi aspettavo questa risposta, perché there's a lot of you talking about Treebeard in the appendices, so I was expecting it. But that's cool, don't worry. Ovviamente ha citato Barbalbero, che possiamo veramente definire come una sua creatura fatta e finita. Se guardate le appendici delle due torri, soprattutto nel documentario Weta Workshop, vedrete che fin dall'inizio Richard Taylor e Peter Jackson hanno assegnato a lui direttamente il compito di creare Barbalbero. Peter Jackson stesso nel documentario dice che aveva visto in Daniel l'emozione di un giovane appassionato che aveva sempre giocato con l'idea di come questa creatura sarebbe dovuta apparire. Il problema nel lavorare su Barbalbero è che il concetto alla base di tutto il progetto che Peter Jackson aveva imposto ai ragazzi della Weta era realismo anche all'interno del fantasy. Il problema è che un albero parlante è tutto tranne che realistico, quindi ha dovuto lavorare molto sul design e sulla maniera in cui potesse funzionare anche da un punto di vista pratico, affinché la creatura fosse credibile. Era veramente un progetto rischioso sul quale lavorare, ma grazie allo sforzo di design prima, di disegno prima, di design successivo, di costruzione della Weta Workshop e infine anche della collaborazione con la parte digitale della Weta, la Weta Digital, tutto l'amalgama degli elementi che formano Barbalbero sul grande schermo è andato alla perfezione ed è sicuramente la creatura e la sua creazione di cui va più più fiero. Ok, I think
amazing.
Filippo has to go.
Yeah,
But one
I'm
thing
for
before you
Portugal.
leave, because I know that after 19 years, because we're not there yet, Daniel is still upset about something. And I know that Filippo is pretty concerned about it, which is we love Helm's Deep scene and sequence, but we're still upset knowing that your cameo was ruined by Vigo.
Yes, really
Filippo
upset.
today proposed to have a 2-hour quarrel about Vigo and his arrogance toward the camera, perché dovete sapere che Daniel fa, come avevo scritto anche oggi sui social, una comparsata nei panni di un elfo nella scena delle mura del fosso di Helm, ma Viggo Mortensen si è messo davanti a lui e gli ha rubato il cameo, e Filippo questa cosa proprio non la può
No good,
sopportare.
Vigo, no good.
No good, Viggo.
No good, Vigo.
Does everybody know it already, or should we tell that story?
Oh, please.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, and thank you, Filippo, I appreciate your care. But I had a chance to have a cameo as an elf at Helm's Deep, and I thought it was all going to be great because they're lining up the camera, they bring us all in, all of us extras in armor, we're all standing there, and the camera is looking right at me. I'm like, oh, fantastic, I'm going to be in the shot, it's going to be awesome. And then at the last minute, they bring the star in, Vigo, and they put him, and they stand him right in front of me, and you can just see the crest of my helmet over his shoulder. Yeah, but I did get my cameo later on, and there's another shot later on, and I'm in there. So that's the one I can put.
Really? I never spotted it.
I made it in. So when Vigo, he says causeway, and he points to the Urukai coming up the causeway. I'm one of the. There are 2 elves standing next to him that fire our bows. One of them is me. So
I want to see the movie.
There it is. That's me. It's like half a second.
That's more than enough. You see, this is mind-blowing for us because thinking that we're talking to a person who was on the Helm's Deep set. How long were you there for?
I visited the set one night, but just to visit, and then that shot was actually shot in pickups in the studio later. So all we had was just a little piece of wall for that shot. Yeah.
Wow. Ok. Ha rispiegato quello che vi avevo già spiegato. La telecamera, la macchina da presa era perfettamente in posizione, lui ha controllato l'inquadratura, ha detto perfetto, sono in primo piano, mi si vedrà benissimo. No, all'ultimo minuto è arrivato Peter Jackson e ha detto e Viggo va qua, praticamente davanti a lui, quindi nell'inquadratura che abbiamo anche postato oggi sui social si intravede a malapena il suo elmo, però ha detto che in seguito è riuscito a ottenere il suo cameo. C'è un'inquadratura successiva in cui Viggo indica gli Urukai che stanno raggiungendo la pedana verso il cancello del trombatorrione, e uno dei 2 elfi che si vede, lui indica di sparare alle frecce, è proprio Daniel, anche se non era più sul set principale della scena, ma in uno studio, was the Stone Street Studios?
Yeah.
Stone Street Studios a Wellington, e quindi avevano costruito un pezzo del muro solo per quell'inquadratura che mancava e che è stata girata in un secondo momento. Ok, justice for Daniel is done, Filippo. You can, if you have to go, you can go.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you. And thank you, Michele.
Prego, Filippo. We have a dream, Daniel. We hope, we're dreaming about it for 20 years now. We have to come visit New Zealand.
Yes, you do, and you must let me know when you're coming so that we can, really give you a proper reception.
Oh, we can't wait.
Thank you very much.
We have to figure out the way to come. Filippo actually had a New Zealand family as a guest a few years back, and they were talking about that. You remember?
Yes, yes, a family that stayed at because my parents had a house to rent, and New Zealand families stayed about 2 or 3 weeks here in Livorno, and they said me to go to New Zealand, but I prefer to go with Daniel, of course.
Yeah, we have to come visit.
Yes, please do. Come and see us at
Bye,
Weta.
guys, I have to go.
Ciao, Filippo.
Thank you very much. I follow on YouTube. Ciao. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
So we have a few compliments for you from the audience. Marta, you can read it.
Thank you very much. It's very, very kind. I'm just here representing the huge crew that worked on these movies. There was a massive number of people, and I can only accept a little tiny weeny bit of credit.
Ha detto che è solo qui come rappresentante di un'intera schiera di artisti, il suo contributo è piccolo, anche se è molto più grande di quello che ammetterà mai. So, here we are, you and me, Daniel.
Yeah, you only allow Filippo like 20 minutes and then got to kick him out.
Yeah. Now it's about the two of us. Who cares about Filippo? No, we really wanted to share the story because it's really at the heart of my channel and the idea that movies change people's life. And
yes, they do.
And
yep.
Yes. So I have a few questions that I wrote down. I have to take. Yes, one. I wanted to ask you about a thing. Richard Taylor in the appendices says that you were very comfortable working on the elves culture more than on the villain side or other cultures, since the elvish forms, costumes, and weapons are some of the most recognizable in the trilogy. I would like to know what did you find in that culture that was more close to your sensibility? I have to translate it. Gli ho fatto la domanda, sempre nelle appendici. Richard Taylor, il capo della Weta, dichiara che Daniel era l'artista del workshop più adatto, con una sensibilità più vicina a quella che era la cultura elfica, ed infatti la maggior parte dei design legati alla razza degli elfi nella trilogia l'ha creata lui, dai costumi alle armature, alle armi, fino ai palazzi, insomma, delle varie città degli elfi. Quindi gli ho chiesto da quale punto di vista la cultura elfica è quella che sentiva più vicino alla sua sensibilità artistica. Please, Daniel.
I think so. I grew up in an area with a lot of forest and spent a lot of time in the woods, and so I have a love of nature. And I think in the way Tolkien speaks about the elves, I always felt that they're very much in tune with their world, very much in that world. And so that I think that's a natural pairing. But also my favorite art movement when I study art history is Art Nouveau. And that also, again, naturally kind of matches with a love of nature and that sort of thing. So I felt very comfortable drawing in that style, and I'm not very good at stuff that requires straight lines. So I think being able to do wavy, organic stuff, I really enjoy that. And I've never been very good at doing the bad guys. They're always, other artists are better at that. So I think that's why I guess was channeled towards the elves more and more.
Yes, and you created pretty much the costumes. Design, the armor.
I did some. I think there was a lot of people involved with that. I did some armor and some weapons, that sort of thing. Yeah. A little bit of costume work.
Sure. Ok, ha sentito molto vicino a sé la sensibilità del popolo degli elfi, partendo dal presupposto che lui è cresciuto in un'area molto vicina alla natura, è cresciuto giocando e passeggiando nei boschi, e ovviamente Tolkien stesso accosta gli elfi, come ben sappiamo, al mondo della natura, un rapporto molto puro tra la loro specie e quella e la natura che li circonda. Quindi si è sentito molto a suo agio nell'affrontare la creazione di una cultura che comunque rispecchiasse anche la sua esperienza personale, ma da un punto di vista prettamente artistico, il suo movimento artistico, crescendo, studiando arte, è stato quello dell'Art Nouveau, e quindi fin da subito ha pensato che un movimento artistico così organico nelle forme, nell'utilizzo di linee sinuose piuttosto che rigide e molto squadrate, fosse adatto al popolo del... Are you getting my Italian?
I'm just picking up enough of it that I know where you are in the conversation. Yeah.
Fosse così organico e sinuoso, fosse più adatto agli elfi, che sono comunque una razza, diciamo, superiore e più elegante rispetto ai nani o agli uomini stessi o agli hobbit. Great questions.
Take a moment also. We keep mentioning the appendices and how important they are. Can we take a moment to acknowledge that? Because I think we wouldn't be probably sitting here having this conversation if those appendices did not exist. And that comes down to two things. One, obviously, is Peter Jackson saying, yes, you guys can have unfettered access to just film all this stuff and tell the behind-the-scenes story. But the vision for those appendices comes from Michael Pellerin. Is the name. Yeah,
I know the guy.
Have you had a chance to speak to him? Because he would be an amazing guest to have on your show.
Oh, if you can put me in contact.
I would gladly do so. His knowledge of Tolkien is insane. He's so knowledgeable, so well read, so passionate, and he's such a good storyteller. To me, there are two great geniuses in the Lord of the Rings movies, and one is Peter Jackson, and one is Michael Pellerin. You'll have to have him on your show.
Oh, because you have to know that I cannot show them all because they're pretty much around that. But believe me, I have every single home video version of the Lord of the Rings ever. I have the gift set of the extended with the collectibles. I have this with the Costa Botas documentaries. I have the DVDs, the Blu-ray, the 4K steelbook stuff. I'm a little obsessed, as I told you before. Daniel ci teneva a riconoscere il contributo non solo di Peter Jackson per aver dato carta bianca a chi creava i documentari, i famosi appendici che abbiamo già citato prima, affinché il mondo conoscesse il lavoro di tutte le persone che hanno lavorato ai 3 film, ma anche di Michael Pellerin. Michael Pellerin, per chi non lo sapesse, ovviamente io lo conoscevo perché sono malato, è la persona che ha curato tutti i documentari che vedete sulle varie edizioni, soprattutto nelle versioni DVD, delle versioni estese del Signore degli Anelli. E Daniel ha detto che mi metterà in contatto, così sarà uno dei prossimi ospiti. Maybe for the celebration next year of 20 years of the Two Towers.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. And we all have a huge debt of gratitude because, otherwise you would not know anything about the work that we did behind the scenes. He told those stories and he did it so beautifully.
Absolutely. And since we're talking about the extended editions, do you have a favorite added scene in the extended? I know that in the last few years, fans go proud. I only watch the extended editions. I sincerely prefer theatrical cuts.
Really? Interesting.
And since I'm a very Peter Jackson huge fan, I remember vividly on the first DVD of the Fellowship of the Ring, I was really eager to see everything from the next 2 movies, and I was watching it again and again and again. And the featurette presenting the first extended edition begins with Peter saying, literally, "I'm not a big fan of the term director's cut because it implies that my favorite version of the movie did not reach theater," which is not. Literally, I'm that scary, Daniel, believe me. And so it is true. I could watch a 5-hour Fellowship, a 6-hour Two Towers, an 8-hour Return of the King. I think the only 2 essential additions are the Boromir flashback in Osgiliath and Saruman's death.
Yep.
In respect of Christopher Lee, and because it gives the character closure. The other scenes are wonderful, of course, but I think the structure get a little too long and a little too divisive, and I don't think it works perfectly. I always watch with Filippo and another friend of mine. We do every year our annual marathon of the Lord of the Rings, and we always go theatrical, not because we're lazy, but because we prefer them. Vi ho spiegato, come ho spiegato la settimana scorsa a voi, che io, Filippo, Marco, siamo tutti i miei migliori amici ossessionati dal Signore degli Anelli, siamo più fan delle versioni cinematografiche che di quelle estese. Do you agree on the 2 editions?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you're right.
E io e Daniel siamo d'accordo che le 2 grandi aggiunte che rendono le versioni estese migliori sono nelle 2 torri il flashback a Osgiliath con Boromir, Faramir e Denethor, e la morte di Saruman, che dà comunque chiusura al personaggio. Great, we agree on that too.
I will say I really love, there are some scenes in the Fellowship of the Ring that are added that I really love though. I think that there's 2 or 3 scenes with Boromir where you get a little bit more of a sense of who he is.
Yes,
and you get
yes.
As a thoughtful, good-hearted person. There's that wonderful scene with him and Frodo in Loch Lorien where he says, to Frodo, "Don't carry the weight of the dead," and it's a beautiful moment. And the moments when he's telling Aragorn, why will you not come to Minas Tirith? There's good in men, why do you so quick to trust the elves? I really love those. because we get more Sean Bean, and he's so amazing in those films.
Yes, yes, he is.
So I think that it gives you, if you weren't brokenhearted enough when Boromir dies in the theatrical cut, then it gives you a bit more reason to love him before his fall. Yeah.
But there's I think everything works as well even without those scenes. He's such a great actor. He needs one gesture when he jokingly fight Merry and Pippin, and he do like that to Merry.
Yes.
He's lovely. Daniel stava sottolineando che nella versione estesa della Compagnia dell'Anello adora un paio di piccole scene in cui Sean Bean, da grande attore qual è, riesce a sottolineare quell'umanità di Boromir che esce comunque nel film, ma che viene rafforzata da queste scene e che rendono ancora più drammatica la sua caduta, come se ci fosse bisogno che la scena della morte di Boromir sia ancora più drammatica di quello che è. We were talking about elves, Dan.
One second. Just while we're on Sean Bean, isn't it interesting that he can do that little gesture on Mary's head, and it is affectionate, but he can do the exact, and this is the credit to Sean and what a great actor he is. He can do the exact same
when
thing
he's carrying the wood in one hand, and he goes, yeah.
When they're going up the Misty Mountains, and Frodo drops the ring.
Oh yeah,
and
when he drops the ring. Sorry, yeah.
He gives it back to Frodo, but then he just says, "I care not," and does the same thing to Frodo's head. But in that moment, it is not affectionate. It is not. It is dismissive, and it is a little bit abusive. And it's just the subtlety is so clever. He's amazing. So cool.
He's a great actor. He's a great actor. Too bad, too many memes about his death. He doesn't die every time. It's not true. It's not true. Io ho sottolineato a Daniel che l'umanità di Boromir viene, da quanto è bravo Sean Bean, viene fuori anche da un semplice gesto, quello in cui scarruffa i capelli a Merry dopo che hanno combattuto e lo ha colpito e gli ha fatto male. E lui giustamente sottolineava che lo stesso esatto gesto fatto dallo stesso attore in un'altra scena, quella in cui a Frodo cade l'anello sulla neve, alla fine un po' per rompere la tensione del momento, lo fa in maniera un pochino più subdola, magari è una parola troppo forte, però sì, con una finalità completamente diversa. So Daniel, we were talking about elves, but I have to tell you, my favorite culture in Middle Earth that you guys created in design is Rohan. I love Rohan, and I think that perhaps my favorite item in the entire trilogy, which is not, of course, I can tell 1,000 more, but is Elmer's helm.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Because for the horse.
Wow.
I think that golden horse is one of the finest piece that you guys created, as well as the Theoden's armor, which you worked on, and sword.
Wow.
I'm obsessed about the way that you guys find 1,000 ways to use the horse figure in such an artistic, interesting, and fascinating way.
It's fascinating that you say that, because that's one of the designs that I look at, and I sometimes think, was that a good idea to put a horse's head in the middle of the action?
It's exaggerated, but it's so organic in their culture. I mean, we know that all their names as the EO part, which mean horse in Old English, again, nerd. And it's right that horses are everywhere in their culture. So I love his helmet. I love how Carl Urban wore it in the reunion they had last year with Josh Gad. He has at home. I want to steal it. It's wonderful. And Rohan is my favorite culture. I love especially Howard Shore's main theme for Rohan.
Beautiful.
Which is astounding. I had the pleasure to see the Lord of the Rings Symphony with him conducting in 2009.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's amazing. The interesting thing with AME's helmet was we designed it so that the cheek flaps could be raised. But they never did it in the film. But that was one thing, because I thought, we need to be able to see more of Carl Urban, than just so. Yes, but we never.
Ho detto a Daniel, I translate this and you can go on. Ho detto a Daniel che sì, abbiamo parlato di elfi, però la mia cultura preferita all'interno della Terra di Mezzo che hanno creato è quella di Rohan, e gli ho sottolineato come probabilmente l'oggetto che io amo di più nella trilogia sia l'elmo di Eomer proprio per il cavallo che fa da paranaso nell'armatura. Lui ha detto che trova questa scelta bizzarra non perché sia brutto l'oggetto, ma perché tutte le volte che guarda quel design al quale ha lavorato lo trova parecchio eccessivo. E io gli ho sottolineato che di fatto Rohan gira tutto intorno, il regno di Rohan, alla figura del cavallo, e che quindi anche se è un pochino eccessivo come design è assolutamente coerente con il loro amore per i cavalli e anche con il loro spirito guerriero. E dice che un piccolo dettaglio di quell'elmo che era stato creato con il copriguance che poteva essere alzato ma che nel film non si vede. Please Daniel, sorry if I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. I know exactly why you feel so strong about this Rohan culture, because to me, I feel similarly. It's one of the most beautifully established and real feeling cultures, and I think that's because of all the cultures of Middle Earth, it's the one that actually probably is closest to real cultures here on Earth. They're basically, they're Vikings with horses. You can see so many real Northern European cultures of our ancient history represented there. We even directly stole a few times, like some decoration on ancient Celtic weaponry like that, and actually used it directly because it was, it worked so well. So I think that's partly why they're so grounded. They work because they feel so believable. Yeah. And we will all get to see much more of them as well, because in addition to the Amazon show, we also now have Brothers Animation
movie.
War of the Rohirrim coming soon too, so that we have that to look forward to as well.
Yes. Right, you're right. I forgot to ask you about that. So I must think that you're working on it. So maybe you're working on something up for it.
That would be fun.
Yep. Dovete sapere che dietro le quinte ho detto a Daniel: sappi che scherzeremo un po' in diretta sui progetti a cui stai lavorando e dei quali ovviamente non può dirci niente. Ha detto innanzitutto che capisce il motivo per cui la cultura di Rohan è una di quelle più amate nei film, perché è quella che più si avvicina a vere culture che sono esistite nella storia. Dopotutto sono vichinghi a cavallo, ed infatti si sono ispirati profondamente a tutta la grande cultura del passato dei popoli del nord Europa, e addirittura hanno rubato direttamente molti elementi della cultura celtica, armature, armi eccetera, per inserirli nel design delle armature dei cavalieri di Rohan. Poi Daniel ha ricordato che avremo la fortuna di vedere ancora Rohan nel film animato che la Warner ha annunciato l'anno scorso, ovvero La guerra dei Rohirrim. Allora visto che io so che lui non può dirmi a cosa sta lavorando, però gli ho chiesto: vuol dire che ci stai lavorando? E con un sorriso, come avete notato, ha detto: sarebbe divertente. And this was only the first of the inconvenient questions of tonight. I'm kidding, Okay, so since I have 1,000 questions, but I don't want to keep you too long here. Okay, Lord of the Rings.
We can do this again. There's no reason we have to wait a year. If you want to do another session later this year, we can do that. That'll be fun. It's always fun to talk Lord of the Rings with people who love it as much as I do.
Wow. Okay, so perhaps I'll give you an appointment 1 year from now and we'll watch together the Two Towers.
Fantastic.
Because you're not on the audio commentaries, so we'll record our one for the Two Towers.
Awesome. That'll be fun.
We'll keep in contact. Don't worry. No, but anyway, Lord of the Rings comes out, it wins all the Oscar. It wins. Changes the world. You guys go on with other works, and then I start from the question: while you were working on Lord of the Rings, were you already toying the idea and working on The Hobbit? Yes, you were, of course.
Yeah.
Ok, gli ho chiesto se mentre lavoravano al Signore degli Anelli stavano già giocando con l'idea un giorno di realizzare lo Hobbit, e non ha negato, è andato diritto alla risposta e ha detto assolutamente sì. So, The Hobbit is a trilogy that I love. Many people love. It's been a little more discussed than it's always like that with sequels, prequels. I mean, we've seen on Star Wars as well.
But it has a different tone, a different energy.
It has. When Peter contacted you guys to work on that, I'm sure you were more than ready. When you approached the project, did you find his approach or the general approach to the project to be different from the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, very different. First off, we actually started to make The Hobbit in the beginning, back in 1997, but we had only been on it maybe not even a week when the studios said, actually, the rights are too complicated. We're not going to make The Hobbit. We'll come back to that later. We're going to do The Lord of the Rings first instead, because the original plan was to do The Hobbit first and then do 2 films from The Lord of the Rings if it did well. But instead, they just launched straight into Lord of the Rings. I let you translate that, then I'll carry on.
Ok, gli ho chiesto se quando è arrivato il momento di lavorare con Peter Jackson allo Hobbit ha trovato nell'approccio di Peter Jackson, in generale al loro approccio al progetto, delle differenze. Lui ha detto una cosa che tra l'altro mi ero dimenticato di discutere nelle puntate precedenti sul Signore degli Anelli. Di fatto la Weta ha iniziato per un brevissimo periodo, una settimana a malapena, a lavorare allo Hobbit nel 1997, perché inizialmente i progetti di Peter Jackson erano quelli di girare un film sullo Hobbit e poi 2 sul Signore degli Anelli qualora il film avesse avuto successo. Poi ovviamente sappiamo com'è andato, i diritti per lo Hobbit erano più difficili da ottenere e the rest is history, il resto è storia.
But yeah, no, The Hobbit, they were different because obviously we had the famous change of director halfway through when we had already been working on it for some time. The feeling of the films obviously is also different because it's a little bit more fairy tale. It's a little bit more high fantasy. It's less grounded in the reality that Lord of the Rings was. But then also working on it, we were on such a tremendous rush. With the Lord of the Rings, we had years to get ready because the start date kept getting pushed back. And so we had a lot of time to prepare, a lot of time to design, thank goodness, and get ourselves ready to make those films crew up. Yeah. With Hobbit, we had to do the same amount of work, but in a tiny fraction of the time. So everything happened much, much more quickly. And then in the middle of that, we had all kinds of things, the strike and the change of director and all that kind of stuff happening. So it was a much more frantic process. It wasn't, just a very, very different schedule working on it. And also a lot more, it was a much bigger crew to begin with. On the Lord of the Rings, we started out very, very small and tight-knit, and we slowly grew. On The Hobbit, we started out very large. So it was just a very different process.
Mm-hmm. Ok. Ovviamente sappiamo che la lavorazione dello Hobbit è stata più complicata fin dall'inizio, perché innanzitutto a metà della pre-produzione c'è stato uno sciopero che ha un po' scosso la situazione dal punto di vista produttivo. Poi sappiamo che il progetto era partito come un doppio film diretto da Guillermo del Toro, che poi ha dovuto lasciare il progetto, lasciando tutto in mano a Peter Jackson, che ha dovuto reinventare il progetto per avvicinarlo alla sua visione della Terra di Mezzo. Fin dall'inizio hanno capito che il progetto sarebbe stato completamente diverso, sia da un punto di vista di atmosfera, proprio di approccio narrativo. Lo Hobbit è molto più fiabesco, dai toni più leggeri e meno epici del Signore degli Anelli, ma anche da un punto di vista produttivo. Se per il Signore degli Anelli hanno avuto anni e anni, anche grazie a rinvii produttivi, per i quali ringrazia dopo tutto, nonostante i disagi dell'epoca, per preparare tutti gli elementi necessari a dare vita alla Terra di Mezzo, con lo Hobbit si sono trovati veramente innanzitutto a lavorare con più fretta per rispettare le schedule e le scadenze, ma soprattutto fin dall'inizio con un gruppo di lavoro molto molto più ampio. Se sul Signore degli Anelli erano partiti come una piccola squadra di pionieri, per così dire, che progettavano roba con tutto il tempo del mondo, sullo Hobbit hanno sicuramente avuto meno tempo, anche se erano in di più. Diciamo un approccio più... It was almost a more Hollywood-like approach from the beginning on The Hobbit.
I think that's probably fair to say. Yeah.
I mean, for the più hollywoodiano.
Basis of comparison, because it was the first big film I'd ever worked on, so I just assumed that's how it always works. But yeah, it was very different for The Hobbit. More Hollywood, you're probably right, yeah.
Yes, but also the appendices on The Hobbit are pretty good as well.
Oh yeah. Yes. And there was no less love that went into The Hobbit than the Lord of the Rings. We all, still loved that world and tried to do the best work we possibly could. So yeah.
Which is since Filippo is no more here, I'll give you this question. Which is your favorite piece on the Hobbit trilogy?
Hobbit. Oh, I love Thranduil's sword. I was so happy with the way that turned out. I thought that was the sword maker did an absolutely beautiful job with that.
Il suo oggetto, l'oggetto preferito al quale ha lavorato per la trilogia dello Hobbit è la spada di Thranduil. Everything about Thranduil is magnificent. His throne. He's a great. Lee Pace is a great actor. The character is a great character, and the entire reinventing elves for Mirkwood was a very interesting. I think it's been a pretty interesting process.
A little bit more hostile, yeah.
Sì, gli elfi del bosco sono più ostili, quindi hanno dovuto fare un lavoro interessante di redesign. Because I would love to see Guillermo del Toro's The Hobbit, because I love Guillermo del Toro. But I have to tell you that while he was preparing it, I was a little sad. Because even for Star Wars, we've always seen many directors working on the same stuff. Especially in the last trilogy, we've seen it didn't work that well, especially in the narrative part. Even if I like them somehow, with all their flaws. And I've always wanted, and I don't know how I got it, to have Peter make the entire story, to be quite honest. And I think that even I can see as an audience member and as a fan that the approach is completely different, but it still is Middle-earth. And I'm glad that we had the entire 6 movies saga made by Peter Jackson.
Oh, well said. I would agree with everything you just said. Guillermo was the most lovely man to work with.
I met him twice.
You did? Isn't he just he's so warm and
I have to tell you, gli racconto il mio incontro a Venezia con Guillermo del Toro, che ho già raccontato altrove. I have a small festival here in my hometown. It's a horror science fiction festival. And I had this dream to invite him, because I know from other people that he's so kind to people. I prepared a letter of invitation. We were watching a movie, a few aisles, one from the other. It was The Favorite by Yorgos Lanthimos. Did you see that, the movie?
No.
I don't like the movie. So as he was exiting the big theater at the Venice Film Festival, I didn't want to bother him because he was the president of the jury. You usually don't bother the jury after a screening. But everybody was asking for pictures and autographs and say, Mr. Del Toro, I have this for you. Is that a script? No, of course it's not. It's an invitation. He opened the letter. He started to read. And a bodyguard came and basically threw me away. He took the guy, said, no. He took me to the arm and brought me with him. And we had a wonderful chat. He's the nicest guy, really.
He is. He was lovely. So we were excited when Peter stepped in to direct the films, but also sad because Guillermo was a dear friend, and we had all really enjoyed the project working with him on it. It would have been a very, very different set of movies for sure, as you said. I still would love to see them someday. The designs were wild. Goblin Town was crazy. It was amazing. It was something quite extraordinary. I have no idea whether people would have loved it or hated it, but it would have been it would have been a conversation piece for sure. I hope someday you guys can see some of what Guillermo had devised.
Daniel, I know a guy that works on books by Weta.
Yes, I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. It has to be the higher ups have to approve it first before I get.
All right.
But I would. Let's beat the drum. Let's start the petition. We want the art book.
Let me talk to the right people. I'll convince them.
Excellent.
No, stava dicendo che ovviamente alla Weta erano super contenti ed eccitati di lavorare allo Hobbit con Guillermo del Toro, perché è un regista che amano e soprattutto è una persona eccezionale. Anch'io ho avuto l'occasione di incontrarlo brevemente, ovviamente per un paio di volte al Festival di Venezia. È stato sempre gentilissimo e super disponibile, però c'era appunto anche questa tristezza di fondo nel pensare che il progetto non sarebbe stato portato a termine da Peter. Però lui si augura, come ho detto io all'inizio dell'intervento, che prima o poi noi del pubblico, noi appassionati, si possa vedere alcuni degli elementi dietro le quinte della lavorazione dello Hobbit di Guillermo del Toro. Siccome Daniel, tra le altre cose, I'll ask something about that later, lavora e collabora a molti dei libri dietro le quinte del lavoro della Weta Workshop, gli ho detto, io conosco uno che lavora sui libri della Weta, ha detto che lui lo farebbe domani, però non sta a lui la decisione. Let's open a petition online, guys, for the the book about the other Hobbit. Okay, so again, we'll have other occasions to talk about Middle Earth. But before we wrap and read a few questions from the audience, which are a lot, I have to ask you about another masterpiece you worked on. I can go on about Avatar and Chronicles of Narnia, but in 2005, when King Kong was released, it had success. It was appreciated, but I think it received the rightful consideration as a masterpiece that it is only in the last 5 to 7 years.
Interesting.
Sometimes things takes time.
Yeah.
It's not the first, and it won't be the last time that happens in the history of movie. I think the weight of the trilogy was heavy on Peter's back.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
You do such a masterpiece, and everybody's looking upon you, and they hope that perhaps you fail. Peter didn't fail, because I watched King Kong, and I'm not a huge fan of King Kong. I mean, I love movies of every kind, but I'm not that into monster to love King Kong. But the movie was, from the first screening, so openly a declaration of love for cinema and a reflection also to what it means to tell a story that blew me away. And I think it's so subtle in such a huge movie that many people didn't get all the secondary reflection outside of the big adventure thing. And I, reading a lot of stuff, watching a lot of YouTube analysis, I recognize that finally King Kong today is recognized as the masterpiece that it is.
Wow.
I was working on it.
I mean, I had a great time. The interesting thing for me was I was hired at Weta in 1996, straight out of art school, to work on King Kong. And that's what I started working on. But of course, as many of us probably already know, King Kong was shelved. In the beginning of 1997, the studio said, you know what? We've got Godzilla coming out. We have Mighty Joe Young, which is another film about a giant ape coming out. You know, we're going to be the third film behind those. Nobody's going to want to go see King Kong after they've already seen these other films. So they put the film back on the shelf. And luckily, Peter was able to, after The Lord of the Rings, bring that back down off the shelf and get to make it, which was amazing. So it was really nice to finish the work that we had started. And again, it was a very different film that it ended up becoming from the one that we started working on in 1996. But I think what you really see in King Kong is that it is a work of passion, because Peter Jackson is a huge fan of the original King Kong, and that film was a film that he had to make. You know, he had that film in him, and he wanted to do his version of it to pay homage to the original. And that, I think, above all else in the film, comes through as this deep, abiding love of the source material that he had. I think that's there on screen.
Absolutely. È vero, dobbiamo ricordare che Daniel è entrato a lavorare alla Weta nel 1996. How old were you, Daniel, in 1996?
Oh, I would have been 21. So I was straight out of art school, very, very young. You know, I pinch myself, so lucky.
Yeah. Daniel è entrato a lavorare alla Weta nel 1996 quando aveva 21 anni, proprio same year you finished school, the year after?
Yeah, I went straight from art college, from tertiary straight to Weta. Yeah.
Lucky man. Ha finito la scuola di belle arti ed è entrato a lavorare alla Weta. Chiamatelo fortunato. It's not only about luck. I mean, you were a talented guy, and you showed us that you were.
Right place at the right time.
È entrato a lavorare nel 96 alla Weta quando Peter Jackson era in fase di pre-produzione per il King Kong che avrebbe dovuto realizzare per la Universal. Ne abbiamo parlato la settimana scorsa. Il problema qual è stato? Che nel 97 c'erano già in uscita Godzilla di Roland Emmerich e Il Grande Joe, il film con Charlize Theron e Bill Paxton col gorillone, e la Universal decise che il terzo film col mostrone, con la creaturona, in un anno sarebbe stato un rischio economico troppo grosso, e il film fu messo da parte, il progetto non andò a buon fine. Da lì poi, luckily, King Kong didn't happen in 96, so we had Lord of the Rings.
Instead, yeah.
Per fortuna non è andato avanti col progetto, se no non avremmo avuto il Signore degli Anelli, almeno per come lo conosciamo. Quindi da un certo punto di vista lavorare nel 2004 dopo il Signore degli Anelli su King Kong è stato bello, perché per lui è stato come finire un lavoro che aveva iniziato anni prima, proprio all'inizio della sua carriera. Ogni fotogramma del film mostra tutta l'incredibile passione di Peter Jackson per King Kong e per il cinema in generale. Sappiamo tutti che Peter Jackson è un grandissimo appassionato del King Kong del 33 originale di Cooper e Shershak. Voleva e doveva fare questo film, era tutta la vita che desiderava farlo, e non c'è un singolo fotogramma da cui non fuoriesca l'amore per il progetto da parte di Peter Jackson. So they were not quite as good as the appendices, but the production diaries on King Kong was great as well.
Yep.
I have them on DVD, and I was so fascinated about creating all that poop. I mean, I have a friend which is obsessed about the creation of the poop for the set. Which set was that for? For the cages, perhaps, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
On the venture. Yeah, I mean, the level of detail that we found and loved in Lord of the Rings were straight into King Kong, and it was really amazing. On which level did you work on the movie?
On King Kong, so I was doing creature designs mostly, and most of my creatures did not make it into the movie because we had also a couple of other guys in our team who are amazing at drawing dinosaurs, and so their dinosaurs were the best. So those are the ones we see in the film. I got I think my main creature that got into the film that was one of my designs was there's this creepy looking dragonfly that
the one that stays in the nest.
Yeah, and it's the one that Andy Serkis hits with. He tries to hit with a skillet, you know. Yeah, so
yeah.
That was one of mine. But other than that, most of my stuff didn't make it in. That's fine. It was still a lot of fun.
It's a group work. I mean,
it always is. Always, yeah.
Ha sottolineato che ha lavorato al film soprattutto come designer delle creature, anche se c'erano un paio di ragazzi molto più bravi di lui a disegnare dinosauri, e quindi no, Daniel, don't.
I try to find the picture so people know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I'll translate and then I'll tell you something, because you just heard me so bad. I don't own that book. I'm looking for that for years, but on eBay they price it so high.
Yeah,
it's so expensive, and I'm crying inside now. Another reason to come visit. I have to steal it from you.
Yeah.
Of course. No, ha detto principalmente ha creato creature per il film, però come succede spesso è un lavoro di gruppo, quello del design, e molte delle sue creature non sono finite nel film. Principalmente riconosce che c'erano due artisti molto più bravi di lui a disegnare dinosauri e creature simili. Una delle creature che ora ci mostrerà, che è finita nel film, che ha creato lui, è quella sorta di volatile, una sorta di piccolo drago che vive nella grotta dove abita King Kong.
Let me see if I can. That's the one. That one right there.
Yep. Sì. Quello ancora più piccolo. No, allora non è quello che intendevo io. Oh my god. Io non ce l'ho quel libro. Non si trova più. Daniel.
I would offer to send you one, but I have only the one copy myself. So I'm holding on to it.
I looked on eBay this morning, and a guy wanted like $200.
Oh, that's crazy. That's nuts. They need to do a second printing.
Nerds can be mean also.
Yeah. Well, we know the value of things, you know.
Yeah, of course. So two more questions, and then we go to the audience, and then we wrap. You are now an art director for the collectibles.
Yeah.
So your career at Weta evolved, changed through the years, and now you're more concentrated on the stuff that we fans love to buy, even when it's so expensive, because it deserves.
Sorry.
You guys are right. I mean,
it's one of the lovely things about Weta Workshop is that primarily we're just a company of artists who like making cool stuff, and yes, we love cinema, but we also like making cool stuff for other things as well. So and there's enough flexibility within the company. The company's had to stay flexible and diversify in order to stay alive, because New Zealand is a small place, and we can't always be working for Peter Jackson. We need other projects as well. So it's great working there, because as my interests have evolved and developed, I can stay fresh by taking on new challenges and move into new parts of the company. So the collectibles really are a way for me to stay in Middle Earth, because when we're not working on Middle Earth project, we still have these wonderful collectibles to make. We still have the books to be written, that sort of stuff. So I've managed to spin out what was going to be just 2 movies when I started. I've managed to spin that out into a 25-year career of just working in Middle Earth as much as possible. So that's why I love the collectibles, and also because I love collectibles myself. I'm a toy collector, so it's really fun getting to play and make collectibles based on the projects that we were involved with.
Of course. And your favorite is?
Of the collectibles?
Yep.
Oh man, I don't know. That's hard.
I had to ask.
I have to think.
Give me 3.
Let me think while you translate. I'll try and think of what they are.
Sure. Allora, dovete sapere che ora la carriera di Daniel è ovviamente evoluta all'interno della Weta Workshop, e negli ultimi anni è diventato il direttore artistico di quello che è il mercato dei collectibles, ovvero delle statuine che tutti noi vogliamo comprare, anche se costano un occhio della testa, legati ai film che sono stati prodotti o sulla quale la Weta ha lavorato. È molto contento di questo sviluppo della sua carriera, innanzitutto perché la Weta si è dimostrata una compagnia molto flessibile, perché chiaramente, essendo basata in Nuova Zelanda, non puoi pensare tutti gli anni di avere un progetto grande come un film di Peter Jackson o di James Cameron sui quali campare ed andare avanti. Quindi negli anni si è sviluppato questo mercato. I love that you understand.
Well, I can just catch every now and again. There are words I recognize. I can follow the conversation, so it's great. I love it.
No, I appreciate it.
It's such a beautiful language to listen to.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Quindi apprezza molto il fatto che con questa flessibilità la Weta gli abbia dato la possibilità non solo di lavorare a un mercato, quello dei collectibles, che lui per primo ama, perché da piccolo abbiamo detto che se non riusciva a comprarsi le collectibles se le creava da solo in casa, ma anche di trasformare quello che doveva essere un semplice progetto nel 97 di 2 film in una carriera lunga più di 20 anni, perché di fatto lui sono più di 20 anni che prima sui film del Signore degli Anelli, poi sullo Hobbit e poi sui collectibles sta ancora lavorando e mettendo tutta la sua passione nei prodotti legati alla Terra di Mezzo. E io gli ho chiesto quali sono le sue collectibles preferite. You have a question? Yeah, an answer?
I think I love the miniature helmets that we make, because they have a classical, like, museum quality. Like, it's cool having a statue of a creature on your shelf, but like, I think to me the helmets I love because they feel like you're in a museum or something. So, and I can't collect the big ones because they're too big and expensive, but I can collect the little ones, and so I have a whole range of them. So my wife is just saying, and my family are just going out, so I'm waving goodbye to them. Bye. Ciao.
Say hi from Italy.
I will. Hello from Italy. Anyway, so I love the miniature helmets, and then the other one so I buy them as well. Every time we're designing a new one to be made as a collectible, I'm creating an uncomfortable conversation I have to have with my wife about, I need to buy that too. So
your stuff.
Yeah, and I love the Hobbit holes too. The little miniature Hobbit holes are really cute.
Yeah.
That we just had. They started out small, but they've gotten quite big. We've just launched the big one, Bag End, a gigantic version of Bag End. It's like about this big.
I saw it.
It's amazing, and they let us. The lovely thing was they let us launch it in Hobbiton outside the real Bag End. And it's such a pleasure to get to go and visit there. I've only been 2 or 3 times, but to go there, it's such a special place. So for me, that's like a sacred pilgrimage, going to Hobbiton, because that's where you can feel like you're in Middle Earth, completely surrounded. So that was amazing. Really, really cool experience.
Chills talking, only listening to you talking about.
Come, and you have to go there.
We have to figure it, somehow. Yeah. Right around the corner for me. Daniel ha detto che non ha delle collectibles specifiche preferite, ma ama molto la collezione, la serie di piccoli elmi che fanno. The sizes like that, the helmets ones.
They're 1/4 scale, so the helmets are probably about that big, and then you have a stand as well. Yeah.
Praticamente sono i piccoli elmi dei vari eserciti dei film che stanno su un piedistallo che li sorregge. Gli piace quella linea perché hanno un po' l'idea, ora ce ne fa vedere uno, gli danno un po' l'idea di elementi da museo, quindi qualcosa che rientra anche in un ambito quasi storico. Here they are, actually. And here's my favorite.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh, you see this guy, Phil the Walrus, he's saying in Italian, I was crazy enough to buy that, I don't know which one, last year, but it was worth every single cent of it.
Wow, fantastic. Congratulations and thank you.
E ha detto che oltre alla serie degli elmi adora particolarmente le miniature delle case Hobbit. Da poco hanno lanciato quella gigantesca di casa Baggins. It's the one with Bilbo at the desk, right?
There's that one, but then there's also the whole outside of Baggins.
Yeah, okay.
A little door that can open and lights inside. Yeah.
Daniel. Oh. Okay. Hanno lanciato da poco la miniatura con la luce che si accende, la porta che si apre di casa Baggins, ed è stato fortunato di poter presentare questa nuova miniatura al set di Mata Mata, dove sappiamo esiste ancora Hobbyville. It's Hobbyville in Italian. Hobbyville, not Hobbiton. And we might talk about some Italian translation of the names.
Yes, please.
There's also some quarrels about it, because the book, as a Tolkien fan, it just received a couple of years back a new translation, which is pretty controversial between fans.
Ooh.
Yep.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you about later. And praticamente l'ha presentato sul set di Hobbyville, c'era stato solo 2 o 3 volte, quindi ogni volta che va a Mata Mata sul set, che ora sappiamo è visitabile, per lui è come fare una sorta di pellegrinaggio, ed è stato molto emozionante per lui presentarlo. But, and this is my last question, almost the last one, Daniel è anche uno dei principali conservatori e custodi della memoria storica e della storia della Weta e dei lavori, perché oltre a lavorare sui collectibles da qualche anno è uno dei principali autori e collaboratori dietro alle pubblicazioni su carta del Dietro le Quinte. Tutta la serie dei libri illustrati sul Dietro le Quinte dello Hobbit, incluso quello sul Drago Smaug, sono scritti e curati da lui, e ha scritto anche altri libri, tra cui questo, che è il mio preferito. Questo è un malloppone bello grosso, ragazzi. Se non ce l'avete, amate Il Signore degli Anelli, si trova tranquillamente su Amazon. But let's show it. From script to screen. I was telling the Italian audience, Daniel, that for many years now, you're also one of the main custodians of the written history of Weta work on these movies. And you work on such beautiful books. This is my favorite, to be honest.
Thank you.
You have to work on something. The final Hobbit behind the scenes book never came out in Italy. We have 5 of them.
No, it's crazy. I don't know why they do that. I think there's a couple of other countries. I've had emails from people because the publisher did not create a foreign language version of the last book. So I mean, unfortunately, that I can't do anything about that.
No, of course it was
I wish
a joke.
They did. It would be
in English after all. I had to. I mean,
so frustrating to have the whole collection there and one that doesn't fit, right? So I'm really sorry that that's the case. Yeah.
Luckily, I can manage English. Other people can't. So there's some. Ha scritto tutti e 6 i libri dietro le quinte dello Hobbit. Non sappiamo perché, lo sapeva, gliel'avevo fatto presente. Il sesto in Italia non è mai uscito, quindi lo potete recuperare solo in inglese. Ma this is my favorite one because one is a wonderful object, so well built and designed, and it's the most comprehensive one. So how do you feel this responsibility to be like the teller nowadays of these stories?
It's fun because it's really lovely to tell our own stories, because so much of the time when we're working at Weta Workshop on these movies, we're sitting around talking about them all day, every day as we're working on them. And so out of that comes so many ideas and stories, and only a small number of those make it to the screen or even make it to the appendices. So it's fantastic to have another venue, another opportunity to share those stories and to share artwork that didn't make it into the films. Because my currency is ideas. You know, when I'm working on a film, it's all about what are the ideas. That's what concept art is. You're showing illustrating an idea. So it's fantastic to be able to share those ideas with people, and they can see, oh, they didn't choose this, but they did choose this. Why? What's the difference? Those are stories I'm interested in telling. So it's been a great pleasure to write those books. Mm-hmm. I hope I can do more. Yeah.
Yeah. We just talked about one. You cannot tell me anything, but can we expect some new volumes coming up soon?
I have been asking. I think the last time I talked to the publisher, I said, hey, it's the 20th anniversary. We should do some new books. And they were like, well, yes, but also the Amazon show is coming, and where everybody's going to be very excited about this. Why don't we wait and do some more maybe for the 25th anniversary? Or I don't know. That conversation is still happening. So it's still a possibility. We still have 2 more anniversaries before we finish. So I hope we can get some books in there. I really do. If you guys want them, write letters, make noise. But I would love to be involved in making more of those books, because they're such fun to produce. Yeah. And there's still so much material left to share. We have thousands of photographs and thousands of drawings that you've never seen that I would love to be able to share with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Is it also true that there is still hours of behind the scenes that we haven't seen?
Yes. Yeah.
Guys,
vast quantities of material that you have not seen.
I know. I was hoping for the deluxe box set that came out last year. It was a little cheap on bonus features. Let's hope for the.
We still have another 2 years until the Return of the King turns 20, and then even then, if it doesn't happen, then we're only 3 years from the 25th anniversary. There's got to be an opportunity in there somewhere for more of the stuff to be shared.
Yeah, because appendices, we love them. They're more than exhaustive, but we always want more. Absolutely. I'll translate. Gli ho chiesto come sente la responsabilità di essere il custode appunto delle storie anche scritte su carta. Ha detto che per lui è un'esperienza molto divertente, anche perché per la maggior parte del tempo in cui è alla Weta a lavorare, con i suoi colleghi non fanno altro che parlare, condividere idee e raccontarsi storie del passato e dei progetti ai quali hanno lavorato. Visto che appunto loro lavorano nel mercato delle idee, non c'è niente che abbia più valore per lui delle idee, quindi la possibilità di condividere tutte queste storie, tutti questi pensieri che sono veramente a migliaia e che ancora non abbiamo scalfito se non in superficie, lo rende da una parte molto onorato, ma dall'altra lo diverte anche molto, ed è un'altra possibilità per lui di esplorare queste storie. Gli ho chiesto poi se ci sono altri libri in arrivo. Ha detto che per ora l'editore, nonostante quest'anno ci fossero i 20 anni della compagnia, ha detto di aspettare perché sta per arrivare lo show di Amazon e quindi devono un attimino pensare anche a quello, ma fra 2 anni ci sono i 20 anni della fine della trilogia, 3 anni dopo ci sono i 25 anni della compagnia, quindi le occasioni per vedere nuovi libri, ma anche nuovi contenuti speciali video, perché ha confermato, come sappiamo da anni, che ci sono ore e ore di video che non abbiamo ancora visti, ce ne sono ancora in abbondanza nei prossimi anni. So, I'll read a few questions from the audience and then we'll go to wrap. We have a few. I'm also happy that I see some New Zealanders watching my channel.
Is that right? Hey, hello. Hello, Aotearoa.
So somebody loves Jabba as much as you, Matteo. Sam Filippi says, my dream is working in the world of cinema as a director. So he has a question for you. If you can, of course you can. How do you feel to know that the Lord of the Rings you worked on is considered a masterpiece? We basically talked about it, but I'll change it a little bit. When did you realize after the release of The Fellowship that you had nailed it? Not only artistically, but I mean, guys stopping you in the street, something like that.
Whenever you work on something, you hope it's going to be something special, you because you pour so much of yourself into it. but you never know for sure until the film is finished, because you can only control the tiny amount that you work on. It's part of a massive effort involving thousands of people. So the first inkling that we were onto something special was when Peter Jackson put together what's known as, I think it's the same material that was shown at Cannes.
The Cannes reel,
the year before the Fellowship of the Ring came out. There was like 20 minutes, and he screened that in the cinema for us with a temporary score, and we watched that, and it ended with Boromir's death scene. And we'd only had 2 scenes with Boromir at that point, but yet everybody in the cinema's eyes were just, we're crying watching that. That's when I realized, wow, he actually has managed to capture something really special here. Even though the details sometimes are different from Tolkien's books, the spirit and the soul of it is there. That's when I was really like, oh wow, actually, this might be worth that. People might actually really, really love this. Which is what you hope, but you don't know. You can only hope.
And the first time you realized you were becoming a star too?
Oh, I don't know about that, but I went to San Diego Comic-Con a couple of times, and it must have been, I'm trying to think when it was. It must have been after the DVD for the extended edition of The Fellowship of the Ring had come out, because otherwise nobody would know who we were. But I remember once we got to San Diego, and I was with Richard Taylor, and we pulled up in a van, and we got out of the van outside the hotel. And as soon as we got out of the van, somebody said, "Oh, Richard Taylor, Daniel Falconer from Weta Workshop in New Zealand. We know you from Lord of the Rings. Wow, well done." And we're like, "What? This random person on the street knows who we are?" So, well, of course, we were, thank you. That was pretty mind-blowing to be recognized on the street in another city on the other side of the world. It's like,
man, okay. I'm talking to you like I will talk to Elvis Presley, believe me. It's the same amount of emotion.
I appreciate that, but I'm exactly like you. I'm just a fan who gets to talk and love and express their love of this property. That I got to be working on the films is a happy accident. I'm just so thankful that now I am indulged and I get to talk about this project and these wonderful books for so long, and to do it for a career. That's an incredible honor. So I feel just nothing but gratitude.
That's why this live show has been so wonderful. And thank you, Daniel. Speri sempre, per quanto riguarda il capolavoro, ho cambiato un po' la domanda, Sam, visto che avevamo già parlato della qualità. Gli ho chiesto quando si è reso conto che stava lavorando a un capolavoro e quando ha capito anche lui di essere diventato in qualche modo famoso. Ha detto che speri sempre di lavorare a qualcosa che possa cambiare un po' il mondo e che possa risultare speciale per qualcuno, ma non puoi saperlo finché non vedi il film finito. La prima volta che ha capito che avevano realizzato qualcosa di straordinario è stato quando Peter Jackson ha riunito tutto il team della Weta e nella sala di proiezione privata ha fatto vedere loro quello che poi sarebbe diventato il reel, cioè diciamo il montaggio di presentazione che è stato portato al Festival di Cannes nel 2001, which is one of the few new extras in the new box set. I haven't seen that reel.
Okay, cool.
The Cannes reel is one of the few new extra features on the last box set. Right. E ha detto che quel piccolo montaggio di circa 20 minuti finiva con la scena della morte di Boromir e si sono messi tutti a piangere nonostante non avessero lavorato direttamente alla scena. E a quel punto aveva capito che avevano lavorato a qualcosa di straordinario. Per quanto riguarda la fama, si è reso conto di che qualcosa era cambiato nella sua vita quando lui e Richard Taylor, il capo della Weta, sono arrivati al San Diego Comic Con nel 2002, credo, nel 2003, e scesi dal furgone che li aveva accompagnati all'albergo, un tizio in mezzo alla strada li ha indicati dicendo: "Oh, ma ci sono Daniel Falconer e Richard Taylor della Weta", e lui, riconosciuto in mezzo a una strada dall'altra parte del mondo, è rimasto abbastanza sconvolto da questa cosa. I can figure it's a life-changing experience for you.
It has been. It really has been.
This is basically the question we just answered. Matteo is thanking you for giving. Oh, but I don't think you worked on that. But he loves the goblins in Moria.
I did some work.
One of the coolest creatures still today in the history of movies.
Oh, cool. That was very much a collaborative effort with lots of us, but it took a long time to find them. Actually, for a while, Peter was looking at a design that was much more rat-like, very, very different. Yeah, but eventually it came back to something that looks more like a bug-eyed, smaller version of the other orcs. So, yeah.
Il design dei Goblin ci ha messo un po' a prendere forma, ha detto che non ci ha lavorato direttamente, ma comunque si parla sempre di un lavoro di gruppo alla Weta. È cambiato molto il design, inizialmente avevano una faccia quasi da ratto, quindi l'immagine che tu hai della creatura, Matteo, è arrivata molto più tardi nella lavorazione. Matteo says this.
Oh, thank you very much.
While Alessandro is complimenting with me for my English. Thank you, Alessandro. Some good words for me too. This guy, I guess, is from New Zealand, and he wrote, yes, being a New Zealander and the film shot in his country, I'd like to ask Daniel, what my guest from Avatar 2? Thank you.
What can we say about Avatar 2? I mean, I think we can all expect to have our minds blown because, for me personally, my mind was blown with that first film, and that's been, 10 years ago now? So you can only imagine how much more has been, James Cameron's mind is going that whole time. So I think we're in for an amazing ride. More amazing creatures, more amazing world building.
A lot of water.
Yeah, that's right. They say it's going to be watery in the next one, right? Isn't that what they say? So yeah, cool.
That's what they say, Daniel.
I know more than I'm saying.
Of course, I know. I'm playing the game along.
But the nice thing, look, I can say with complete honesty, I did. There's a huge amount that I don't know about that film, so I can't wait to go and see it as a fan.
You know what? I was talking about it in a talk show a couple of days ago. There must be a reason for Cameron to wait 12 years. Every time he risks everything on his new project, everybody give him no chance to success, and every time is right. Yeah. So I can't wait to see it. I'm sure you know something about it, but I don't want to know anything about it. He found something very cool, some new technology, whatever, that will blow our minds.
He is a perfectionist, and that's why these things take so long, because he has something very particular in his mind, and he won't be rushed through that process. So, yeah, I can't wait to see what it's going to be. I'll be first lining up to buy my ticket.
Of course. Read this while I translate. Ovviamente, ragazzi, lui sa molto più di quello che può dire su Avatar 2. La Weta ci sta lavorando. Ammette anche di saperne molto meno di quanto potremmo pensare, perché ha fatto una piccola cosa per Avatar 2, ma non ci ha lavorato in maniera estensiva. Ma come dicevo anch'io, James Cameron è un perfezionista e sicuramente si è aspettato 12 anni per fare questi sequel. Vuol dire che c'ha qualche trucchetto nascosto nella manica con cui ci farà di nuovo esplodere il cervello. A few others, had I had the chance?
Ooh, yes.
Yep.
Silmarillion, yeah, I know. I mean, so the issue with the Silmarillion, as I understand it, is that the rights reside with the Tolkien family and have never been shared beyond that. So at the moment, nobody can make it. But there's wiggle room, right? Maybe. Well,
I mean, it's so obvious that the sad passing of Christopher Tolkien last year opened new possibilities for the rights of the Silmarillion.
Who knows?
So we just wait.
I would love to work on that, because those stories are so incredible. I mean, I could imagine a series of films, or maybe a television show, with the kind of budget that Amazon has for their show. But it would need to be huge, because everything that's in the Lord of the Rings is in the Silmarillion, but upscaled like 100 times.
Of course, yes.
Armies of Balrogs and dragons, and wow, can't wait to see it.
Yes, Daniel ora sta facendo un po'. I think he's playing a little poker face on that, but I'll let him. Io sono convinto che ci stanno lavorando, ma non ce lo dirà mai. Dopo ci facciamo una battuta sopra. Ha detto che le possibilità di lavoro sul Silmarillion sono infinite. Fino a ora ci sono stati problemi legati ai diritti del libro, per colpa dei quali non si è potuto lavorare molto sul materiale, ma dopo la morte di Christopher Tolkien l'anno scorso delle porte si sono aperte. Il problema è che è lo stesso mondo del Signore degli Anelli, però nella seconda era, in cui tutto è 100 volte più grande, più difficile da creare, su scala maggiore, quindi sarebbe un lavoro non semplice da affrontare.
I think Christopher Tolkien also. He doesn't get enough credit. I think Christopher Tolkien, but there's we would not have the Silmarillion if it was not for Christopher
You wouldn't
Tolkien.
have the Silmarillion, all the history of Middle Earth, the
No.
big tales of the Silmarillion. Baron the Luthien, Children of Húrin, and Fall of Gondolin.
That material could not have been in better hands than with Christopher Tolkien, and he has also done such a great job over the decades since his father passed away, of protecting that legacy and the integrity of the material. So I have huge respect for Christopher Tolkien. Obviously, I'm very sad when he passed away.
He was very fluent in Italian, and he visited the country a lot. Yes.
Wow.
Actually, he was so fluent in Italian. We talked about this last week in the Watch together, that he did not allow History of Middle Earth to be published in Italy for next year. Oops, he died. And now they have the rights, but he prohibited publication after volume 3 because he thought translation was poor.
Wow. So he is a man with standards. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He was perfect in talking Italian, French, and a couple of more languages, of course. Like father, like son, of course.
Yeah.
Stava sottolineando una cosa di cui avevamo parlato la settimana scorsa, l'importanza che spesso non viene riconosciuta fino in fondo del lavoro di Christopher Tolkien nel preservare e condividere e lavorare sull'eredità del padre. Senza di lui we would only have The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, period. That would be it. Senza di lui avremo solo lo Hobbit e il Signore degli Anelli, niente Silmarillion, niente altri romanzi, niente History of Middle Earth. So it's thank God for him. What about this question?
I love it. So I love Bakshi's Lord of the Rings because, and I think a lot of it has to do also with the fact that I was the right age when that came out. Because that came out in 79, or was it
79? Yeah, 78 or 79? Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember going to the cinema, and it might have been when I went to the cinema to see The Empire Strikes Back, because that was in 70. Yeah, in New Zealand we always got it a little bit later, but I remember seeing the posters and the artwork for Bakshi's Lord of the Rings and being so drawn in, because that artwork is so evocative, Gandalf
pointing with the sword.
Yeah, and Aragorn with the sword, and Gollum sneaking around. I remember just like looking at it, and my parents telling me at the time, "You are too young to see that. That is too scary for you. You need to wait until you're older." And so, of course, when I was older and I discovered the books and read them, I realized that's what I was seeing. So no, those films, that film. I mean, it's interesting now looking at it. It's different watching it now than it was watching it back then. But back then, I loved it. And I love it now for its ambition, because they tried to do so much and they were very limited in what they could do. I think there's some fantastic stuff in there. I'm always inspired by those movies. I love the color palette. I love the drawings. I really love Bakshi's Lord of the Rings.
Ama molto Il Signore degli Anelli, il film animato di Ralph Bakshi. Ricorda in maniera vivida di aver visto il poster fuori da un cinema neozelandese e di averlo trovato un'immagine veramente evocativa che gli era rimasta in testa, ma i suoi genitori non gli permisero di vedere il film, dicendogli che era troppo piccolo e che sarebbe... It was Watership Down's fault for you not to see it.
Yeah, it was.
Solo qualche anno dopo, leggendo il romanzo, si è reso conto che quel poster rimandava all'opera di Tolkien. Poi ovviamente è riuscito a vedere il film e lo ama molto, anche perché l'ha visto all'età giusta. So I'm skipping this. Oh no, I'm not. I mean, yes.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, no, that'd be amazing.
They're already working on it though in these years.
Yeah, but that's fine. Maybe if that means there'll be lots of them, maybe sooner or later one of them will come down here and we can get to do some work on it.
Absolutely, yes. Peter Jackson's Godzilla. I love to see a Kong versus Godzilla by Peter Jackson.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
Look, this guy is having his bag end in March.
Thank you. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yes, I love that Bilbo and Bag End piece. Is beautiful. My colleagues who worked on that, it's such a gorgeous job.
I only have the collectible, unfortunately. I only have the 3 collectibles from the extended editions.
Yeah.
The Argonauts are still my favorite, though. I mean, they are superb. And I have Theoden's bust, the one with the black base, which is pretty big. And also I have a King Kong collectible, the one in which Kong fights the T-Rex in the air.
Yes, great.
squared, which is gorgeous, quite honestly.
We try. It's so difficult because they are, obviously a lot of them are limited edition, and so there's only so many we can produce. But that means then that the price has to be high in order for us to make any money doing it. At the moment, of course, the world is in such a strange place that the cost of everything is so high. So it's very challenging. I am always incredibly grateful to our loyal collectors who buy the stuff. If they were not buying it, if they weren't enjoying it, then we wouldn't get to make it, and then I would have to get a real job, and I don't know what I would do. So I really, really appreciate it. It gives me a chance to do what I love. So thank you to everybody who enjoys them so much.
And what about this? It's up to you. It's up to you. I'm not.
Okay. So what's coming this year? Okay, so this year obviously is the anniversary of the Two Towers. So there will definitely be some statues to mark that occasion. So we're hard at work on those at the moment. But we're not going to forget the other films as well. So there are still a few statues from the Lord of the Rings, from the Fellowship of the Ring, that we had originally planned to bring out last year. But because of the way the world is at the moment, delays, all that kind of stuff, some of them will be coming out this year. So you can expect a few more Fellowship of the Ring characters, including some characters from the prologue sequence, because that's So we released a Sauron last year, and coming up this year, you can expect Elendil is coming. So people are going to see Elendil as a statue, which I think is the first time. We did a bust of him years ago, but I don't think anybody's done a statue.
I remember the bust, yes.
Yeah, so there's a statue of Elendil coming. It's still a wee way away, so it'll be a few months before you get the chance to see it, but that's coming. But we also haven't forgotten The Hobbit, and we have some really cool stuff up our sleeves from The Hobbit that I'm looking forward to showing people as well. So you can expect a mix of lots of cool stuff to come. And obviously more as well, more helmets, all that kind of stuff too.
Great. Ci saranno un sacco di prodotti che escono questo anno, alcuni della Compagnia dell'Anello che sarebbero dovuti uscire l'anno scorso, ma che per i problemi legati alla pandemia non sono potuti uscire, fra cui una statua di Elendil. Non l'hanno mai fatta se non in forma di busto qualche anno fa, quindi un personaggio che arriva direttamente dal prologo della Compagnia dell'Anello. Ma quest'anno innanzitutto non si dimenticheranno dello Hobbit e ci saranno grandi novità sui prodotti legati allo Hobbit nella parte collectibles, ma dopo tutto aspettatevi degli annunci sulle Due Torri, perché for you it's the 20th, è il 20° anniversario delle Due Torri. For us it will be 2023 of course. And quindi arriveranno un sacco di prodotti quest'anno dallo Hobbit, dalla Compagnia dell'Anello, dalle Due Torri. You won't get bored, guys, with the collectibles. Oh, this is nice. This guy is telling me to tell you the story of a guy in the south part of Italy, in Abruzzo, which is mainly mountains and woods, like New Zealand. There's a guy who launched a project to recreate the Shire in Italy.
Wow.
And to launch like, how you call it? Oh my God. When you launch a money.
Oh, like a Kickstarter or a fundraiser.
Absolutely. He and a few friends walked from Abruzzo to the Vesuvio volcano in Naples.
Yes, I saw this. How amazing.
Elijah Wood talked about it in a video, and maybe Sean Astin too.
How incredible. What an amazing thing to do.
And now he presented a few months back. He's still playing, parties over there and stuff, especially in the summer and the spring. But he launched like the big project of creating like a hotel in Hobbiton form.
Oh man, I hope it works. I hope he gets to do it. That is so cool.
Yes.
And there can be somewhere to come and visit when I come to Italy to visit you.
Absolutely, because you have to take me in the bag and bring me to New Zealand.
you can come back to Bag End with us, and I can come and visit Abruzzo there.
That's a deal. That's a deal. A few more, then we're done. Thank you for your amazing books, says Matteo. What? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's true, not to be, I don't want to, take too much credit, but it's not usual to have English speaking guests in Italy YouTube. Grazie Edoardo per I complimenti. Amazing live to say.
Thank you.
Oh, this one. After Stan Winston's studio in ADI, he's very curious about what Weta will do with the Alien TV show. Is it happening?
There is an Alien TV show happening. I mean, I'm in my little collectibles world, so I don't get out to see what else is happening. But there is an Alien TV show happening out there. Yes, so I can't wait to see that. I love the Alien franchise. So, and I got to visit Stan Winston Studios and ADI many years ago, which was amazing. It was really cool.
I have the last two. This I hope to know the answer, which is all of them.
Which of the worlds have you worked on was your favorite? Oh, well, for me, it's Middle Earth. I love them all, but Middle Earth is so close to my heart because I grew up reading those books and I loved them even before I came to Weta. So there's no comparison for me. That's where I live.
Okay. La sua passione principale è la Terra di Mezzo e quella resta. Which is your favorite scene in the entire trilogy? Tough one. I'll give you an option. The most touching moment and the most epic moment. And then I'll give you mine.
There's so many beautiful moments with Sam and Frodo, particularly once you get to the Return of the King. That means so much to me, and the quality of their friendship means so much to me. I think it would have to be one of those moments, you know?
I met Sean Astin in Tuscany at a convention 3 years ago, and I have his autograph with the dedication. I can carry it for you, but I can carry you.
Oh, isn't he a lovely man?
He's great. We have 2 pictures together, and that's the Lord of the Rings. It's all in that phrase, in that scene for me, without any doubt. But my favorite epic scene, I always go back and forth between the Rohirrim at the Pelennor Fields and another one. But I think in the end, it's the Riders of Rohan coming down to Helm's Deep.
Oh yeah, that's
the lighting, the effects,
music.
Nothing better. Also the pyres with the Gondor music.
And I would also add to that, one of the ones that always never fails to get me going is the Ents attack on Isengard when they release the river and flood Isengard too. I just love that stuff.
Oh, that's great. That's
my seat at that point.
I love your bigatures. They're all amazing, but that set.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's amazing. So, Daniel, we're going very long and we could stay here for hours, but I won't take advantage of your kindness. So we have to end with a little in-joke. So we know something is coming our way. And I told you before the show, I have one request for Amazon's Middle Earth to look like and be designed like Peter Jackson's and Weta's Middle Earth. So I know you cannot tell me anything, and I hope we can talk about it next year. There hasn't been an announcement about it. I want to take my responsibility and say that you guys are working on it, and I can't wait to see what you're doing.
I can't say yes.
And then you answer. Che so che non me lo può dire, ma che mi prendo la responsabilità di dirgli, di prevedere che stanno lavorando in gran segreto alla serie e che io sono una speranza affinché funzioni, ovvero che la Terra di Mezzo di Amazon sia la Terra di Mezzo, almeno nel design, di Peter Jackson e della Weta. È l'unica cosa che io chiedo da quella serie. Poi della qualità della narrazione ne parliamo più avanti. Non ci dirà niente, ma sentiamo. Let's hear Poker
So I can't say yes, I can't say no, because either one of those things is news, and I can't give news that's not mine to give. So, but what I can speak from is as a fan of what I hope for from the show, as I think we all do. When you take something that is it's just 2 or 3 pages at the end of the book. We're talking about the appendices of Lord of the Rings, and particularly the appendices of the period that they say they're going to set their story. There's very little there, right? There's more in the other books that Christopher Tolkien has shared with us, but just from working with Lord of the Rings is very thin. And you want to make that into a TV show, that requires a lot of expansion of the material, filling in with other things. So, and that's fine. That can work. I think as a fan, my hope, my dream is that the folks who are creating this TV show can do that, can fill that material in with the spirit of Tolkien. Because as we've seen in Peter Jackson's films, sometimes you can change the details, but as long as the spirit is there, we can accept it. So as a fan, I hope that this show has the spirit of Tolkien in it. I really do. So, and that's if I'm working on it, that's if Weta's working on it, that's if we're not working on it, I'm just as a fan, my feeling is the same. I just hope. So September we find out, right? So
September the 2nd.
Please be good. Please be good.
I can't wait to see you here again and tell you I knew it.
We shall see.
Ovviamente,
we can fan out about it together. That'll be fun.
Of course, we will. Ovviamente non può dire sì, non può dire no, se la Weta ci sta lavorando o meno, però ha detto, quello che sappiamo è che la buona parte della progettazione della serie si basa su poche pagine di appendici alla fine del Signore degli Anelli. Chiaro, ci saranno anche altri elementi presi da altri lavori curati da Christopher Tolkien, però la base è quella, quindi sono poche pagine abbastanza generiche, quindi per lavorarci da un punto di vista narrativo bisogna lavorare molto di espansione. Quello che spera come fan, perché è un fan come noi, è che chiunque stia lavorando a quella serie riesca a cambiare e adattare il materiale alle necessità del mezzo televisivo, ma facendo quello che ha fatto benissimo Peter Jackson, ovvero cambiare i dettagli, ma al cuore del progetto restare fedele a quello che è lo spirito delle opere di Tolkien. Daniel, I leave you with this one extra question. I don't know if you can answer. Do you have a favorite Italian movie?
Ooh, now I have to think about what Italian movies I've seen. Goodness me. I'm on the spot now trying to think of what I've seen, which Italian movies I've seen. I can't think of something off the top of my head.
I'll help you with some famous titles. Since yesterday was the day of memory for the Holocaust, Life is Beautiful. You know when?
Yeah.
Beauty by Sorrentino, Fellini, something like that.
Fellini, oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. No, there's a million great films. I don't know. I can't pick a favorite, but I know what'll happen is when I get off this call, I'll be thinking about it, and then all these things will spring to my head. But I also a little shout out to a lovely friend of mine, Susie Knight, who lives in Italy. And one day, my dear friend, if you are watching this, I promise one day I'm going to come and visit you. She has
where she lives.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but she has invited me many times to come and visit, and one day I'm going to, I promise.
Okay, you have to come to Italy to meet your friend Susie.
And to come and hang out with you.
And to bring Weta Workshop at Lucca Comics, second biggest convention in the world, even bigger than San Diego Comic-Con. I think you'll have a blast.
I will try and make that happen. We'll talk to all the right people at this end and say we've got to go.
Of course. Ho detto, devono venire a Lucca Comics, è la seconda convention più grande del mondo, vanno a San Diego, che è la terza, possono venire anche a Lucca, assolutamente. A brief salute. This guy has my same surname, but we are not related. We are friends on YouTube. Ciao, Paolo. Daniel, we have a promise to keep. We'll see each other in about a year.
Yeah,
sounds good. Anniversary. And let's hope to bring some other guests, Michael, or whoever you can.
Yeah.
I hope you had a blast as much as I had.
I had a lovely time. It's always so much fun talking about these things that we love so much together. So thank you, Michele. I really appreciate it.
And you said the name right. Not many English-talking people say. They usually go with Michelle, which is not.
Yeah, it's not right. Yeah.
Don't leave the chat while we go out of the transmission, so we say bye. Ragazzi, ringraziamo Daniel, è stato gentilissimo. Ci ritroveremo l'anno prossimo per parlare delle Due Torri e di altre cose, magari della serie Amazon. È stato gentilissimo. Io spero che la live vi sia piaciuta. E per me è stato veramente emozionante. Se mi avete visto un po' in difficoltà è perché è stato veramente come parlare con una superstar. You're a superstar to me, Daniel, I'm telling the audience. Quindi la prossima settimana 2 piccole cose veloci. Il Leonardo Rinella, che ultimamente non vedete molto in live per impegni lavorativi e altre cose, ha appena lanciato un nuovo formato sul nostro canale Instagram, i Reel, ai quali seguiranno altri piccoli contenuti specifici per Instagram, quindi iscrivetevi alla nostra pagina Instagram. La prossima settimana probabilmente non ci sarà Inno al Cinema, ma ci sarà la prima puntata di The Collector, la mia rubrica sugli acquisti mensili di home video, e la recensione di Guillermo del Toro Nightmare Alley. I have to review it next week. I have to see it on Sunday. E quindi ci vediamo la prossima settimana. Continuate a seguirci. Se la live vi è piaciuta, condividetela, iscrivetevi al canale, attivate le notifiche. Grazie mille, viva il Signore degli Anelli sempre e comunque, e alla prossima. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, and also thank you to all the lovely people who listened live and sent in questions. I really, really appreciate it.
Vi ringrazio per le domande. Ciao.
Ciao.
For Frodo.
The purpose of civilization is to be able to empathize with other people. Beyond the clouds and the stars.
Show me the money! Show me the money! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!